Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning as we look to begin conversations around issues in the news. Our guest reviewer joins us virtually this morning as he lends his thoughts to this conversation. He is an ardent economist and a social commentator. He's none other than Dr. Aliyu Ilias. Hello, Doctor. Good morning and welcome to the program. Hello, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the program. Let's get straight into the conversations making the rounds. And we'll start with the significance of the assent given to the insurance reform bills by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as it seems as though the insurance sector is now set to play a major role in the actualization of Nigeria's hopes of achieving a $1 trillion economy. In your words, what's the significance of this and how does it translate into achieving that dream?
Right. Thank you once again for having me. Definitely, I do have about 3 or 4 insurance that I subscribe to. So, bringing about reform in that area, I think it's a very, very good one. I look at our insurance, there's what we call trust deficit in the insurance sector, and it's actually affecting Nigerians and concerning the growth of such a sector as well. So for me, I think it's a good one, and it will also give the economy more backing, because you know that most things we are doing, it has to be insured, and that's why most business fail, because most of us fail to insure. So beyond that bill itself, we also expect Nigeria government to make sure that they also find a way through NICOM, that is the Commission for Insurance, to educate Nigeria more. Then the dream of 1 trillion economy, I think, could also be close to realization with this reform. These are the type of reform we will appreciate. And it appears that this government is looking at most sectors that are financially inclined to be reformed to achieve a better economy.
Now, let's talk about some of the components of this Nigerian Insurance Reform Act 2025, which yesterday the president did ask NICOM to begin to make changes in that effect. Some of the components of the bill was the increase of capital for life insurance in businesses. There's a certain increase from 2 billion naira to 10 billion naira, and then for non-life insurance firms from 3 billion to 15 billion. What do these increases look to achieve?
Right. You know that capitalization is very, very key, as we are having bank recapitalizing. Must also have other sectors to recapitalize. The more they recapitalize, the more they have the liquidity to actually do business with Nigerians. So I think it's a good one, because you cannot be in that sector and not having enough liquidity to manage Nigerians' demand. But I hope it will not translate to much more money, because I recall that before Tinubu administration, our insurance was 5%, especially car insurance, it was 5%, which that simply means that if you have a car, maybe that is 5 million or thereabout, you'll be paying like 120,000. But if you have a car, but now, moving away from 5% to 10%, we're now paying about 240,000 for a car of 5 million. So if you look at that, it's like there is a jump already. Most of us complain that time that it should just be 5% to 7%, not moving it like 100% increment. So I'm convinced that by the time they recapitalize, they will not come back to say they want to increase the amount we are actually paying. But I think it's important, because capitalization is key. They must have good footage. They must be able to actually pay when there's any challenges or damages as it happens.
Now let's talk about the culture of Nigerians. How do you rate the culture of Nigerians when it comes to being insured? You've cited vehicle insurance. Apart from vehicle insurance, non-life insurance, life insurance. How would you rate the culture?
I think I was one of the guest speakers, the insurance brokers changing of Baton, where they changed chairman in Abuja, and I was invited as one of the panel. I think what we discussed and what I told them is that there is a serious trust deficit. Nigeria find it difficult to believe that when they insure, they will be duly paid when they complain. Beyond that, also, if you look at our antecedents, we don't have the culture. I want to leave everything for to God. We want to make sure that God is taking care of everything. Meanwhile, God has given us other means of taking care of it. However, we made it clear to them that they should also go out and increase Nigerian confidence. The fact remains that I have assessed insurance benefits. I can tell you, I've had accidents and they have compensated me. I've seen different things that happens that has been compensated. I also embark on some education insurance too. We've seen those things working, even with the advent of Takaful and other insurance arm. We have seen it working, but they must go beyond the those that are in it. They must also go out and tell and let some people that are benefited bring their testimony by so doing to help us. And I must also go back to business people. A business I want to scale, a business I want to survive, a business I would not want to fall, must be able to also look into insurance because for especially in the area of supply chain or movement of items from one place to the other, it must be insured because if not insured, you are putting yourself to trouble and you're also putting the company to trouble. Perhaps the problem would have been shifted to insurance. So Nigerians need to be educated on the impact of it and to have a business impact. I can tell you, if we actually do insurance as it's supposed to be, we would have moved beyond this in terms of business. But no business collapses because there is no perfect business. Sometimes you have the up and down. But when you have up and down and you have something to fall back on, it will help. So for me, insurance companies should go more. The NICOM should also tell us that if there is any insurance claim within a week, within 2 weeks, they must pay. I think that's the law. But beyond that, they must also tell customers that if they don't pay you, you must come and tell us. You must escalate. All these things, Nigerians need to be educated. So I think they should do more. They should spread the
Well, it may seem
more money in that sector. So they should also.
now, Doctor, it may seem as though this education on indemnity and how it works with insurance benefits is quite low. Whose responsibility is it to educate Nigerians? Is it on NICOM?
Yes, I think consumer education is key. That's one of the rights of consumers. So education is very, very key, and there is very educated in terms of what they actually need to know about it. First and foremost, I think the onus is on NICOM. NICOM will have tell all the insurance company that use 5% of your profit to educate your consumers. Use 3% of your profit to educate consumers. Bring out 1% of all your income together and actually expend it on ABC. I think that should be the ultimate thing they should do. So the onus is on the NICOM. NICOM is the policy maker. They should bring out the policy that will help. Like I told the insurance brokers as well, they can also involve in that education.
Now, moving away from the newly signed Insurance Reform Bill 2025, Nigerians were on social media reacting to news about a new custom levy. If you recall, sometime last year, conversations around the new 4% levy were gaining grounds, but it didn't make as much traction up until yesterday when Nigerians brought out their calculators to calculate what this would intend for, particularly vehicle importation, and how much importers might exploit this to engage in price gouging. Doctor, have you taken our time to analyze this, and do you care to share some of your findings with us?
Well, if you look at it critically, I think one of the where government of the day is looking at getting more money is custom. But I must tell you, it's having a serious effect or impact rather on Nigerians. I can tell you, you cannot even afford to buy a car now. As you're buying a car, you know that custom cost is very, very high. And that is quite discouraging because it discourages importation. To an extent, we still importation, but now we are encouraging export, but not to the extent that will now, suffocate Nigerians. There is this FOB, free on board increment that is actually coming up. I think these are the things they need to look at very well. Then all of us in supply chain especially, we have the issue of a lot of cost with ports. There's a lot of bureaucratic bottleneck, which I think ports should have it as a one-stop shop. You have port health, you have SON, you have NAFDAC, you have custom, you have police, all about people that are importing, into Nigeria. We must work on that and make it a one stop shop. And
Are
government
you
must
talking
know
about
that by
making
the
it a
time we
one-stop
continue
shop
to
in terms of the national single window?
right. So that is very, very key. We must have a single window whereby everything, what we are saying is that let them be in one room and maybe work with a particular signal that will say, okay, this is the amount we are paying, this is the amount this person is paying, having consider all the maybe agencies. So it must not be that this one will come, this will come. I think that's part of what the
Now, Doctor, there are over
tax reform
20.
should capture.
There are over 20 MDAs that are supposed to be housed under the platform, which the Nigerian Customs Service is more or less the motherboard for. But we hear stories that some bureaucratic bottlenecks and rivalries between these revenue generating agencies has forestalled the takeoff of the national single window. And whilst this is on, we're losing several billions of dollars whilst waiting for a convergence on the customs to flag off this national single window.
Well, I'm thinking even without custom flagging it off, I think the tax reform would have also exposed that, because that simply means that the NIRS will be in charge of the fund. Perhaps that is the problem, or other dirty games that they could be doing by practically going there. So we don't want to see them there. Since somebody have a bill of lading, you can through bill of lading access whatever you want to access. There should be custom money that will be at the seaports assessing it and informing you. So I think that should be if not, if you don't go in that route, it should be worse than this. But I can tell you, importation is very difficult for Nigeria now. Though as an economist, we also have it comes with some benefits, because we are doing more exports and we are having balance of payment to an extent, so which is a good one. But we must not stifle importation, because of that. A car that we are supposed to get at a particular small amount is amounting to 8 million, 10 million, 11 million. I think federal government need to look into that and consider maybe reducing the burden or the excise duty they actually are bringing upon this importation.
Now, there were conversations around the estimated duty and tax amounts. Particularly, reports say that the estimated duty and tax amount is 46,924 naira, 51 kobo, but the customs uplifted the declared package value to $51 to $300, which formed the basis for this assessment. Now, if duty is calculated based on this at the rate of 5%, it may seem as though whatever you declare as value is meaningless as against these parameters as set by the Nigerian customs. How does the government come in to probably ease the burdens of those who want to be involved in car importation?
Right. If you look at it critically, it's clear that this government have the penchant for increasing tariff with the fact that they want to raise more revenue, and that's what is bringing about that. You recall how we have fuel subsidy, we have seen a custom tariff increase, we have seen a lot of things that government are pushing for to do that. But I think our custom is part of, how do I put it? It's part of the economy itself. So we are taking it as a money generating revenue rather than seeing it as economic enabler and economic control mechanism. So if you are looking at this as revenue generation, that means you're going to discourage and abuse what is it. Look at the gap between 5 to 300. The increment as is much more spontaneous, and to about 200 to 300%. That is quite much. So I think we need to tarry a bit to encourage not only car importation, anything you want to import to Nigeria now, you are discouraged. I've seen people who normally do importation, but now they have been discouraged and they are reducing their level of importation.
Now, is it going to be a luxury to own a car for those who are aspiring car owners? What happens to this ambition?
Right. For the past 6 months now, I can tell you the rate at which Nigerian biker has reduced, and car is becoming an ostentatious good. When you say luxury, it's even better. It's becoming something ostentatious in nature, because people, for you to afford the car, that means you have the money. I saw a particular car and I was told to bring it down to Nigeria, it should cost you like 25 million naira. But before, with 10, 12 million, you can get such car. So the rate at which the rate it increases is quite exorbitant.
Now, there's certain news stories coming in that might seem as though it's not all gloom. There's a report making the rounds that Abuja has overtaken Lagos as Nigeria records $5.64 billion capital importation in the first quarter of the year. What's the significance and how does this translate into a better economy projection?
Right. I tried to look at Fatomit when they said FDI, foreign direct investment, that Abuja Lagos is attracting more foreign direct investment, and Abuja is coming as one of the top. The question is that is it in portfolio investment? But I try to look at it critically. I discover that real estate is doing more. People are bringing much more capital into real estate sector, and that's a major sector in Abuja that we could say is attracting more business, because we have not seen any manufacturing company setting up in Abuja of recent. We have not. We also know that most headquarters of banks are also not in Abuja. In fact, 99% of bank headquarters are in Broad Street in Lagos or in VI or Lekki or Ikoyi as it were. So the major thing that is attracting fund in Abuja is real estate sector. So it's part of the economy. Also, you recall that it's quite discouraging to even take capital out of Nigeria now, because by the time you have 50 million naira and you want to take it abroad, you know what it will remain for you. So most of our rich people, our businessmen, thinking of investing. I just watched one particular news now where people in USA bring more money to Abuja, Lagos for real estate, and that's where the money. So it is expected, but I can tell you there is no real business in Abuja. It is just real estate.
Moving away from this, let's talk about a touchy conversation that has sparked a lot of different debates on the way forward. It's reports that Nigeria's external debt servicing has risen in the first quarter of the year to $1.4 billion, beg your pardon. What's to make of this amidst cry of budget deficits as well?
I think it's so pathetic, and that Nigeria is going through this route, which is quite dangerous. But when we have a GDP rebasing, one of my thinking is that, well, this will let government know that they need to generate more revenue. But as it were now, it's so sad that our revenue to debt servicing is becoming a serious trouble. And according to some economists, that very soon our revenue will not be able to pay our debt. So that simply means the implication now is that we are going to be borrowing to actually move the economy forward, which is dangerous. And you could also see the federal government also still continue to borrow, despite the fact that they said we have removed fuel subsidy and it brings more money to their pocket. I think we have to have the culture of stop borrowing, because if you don't have that culture, it's a problem. There's always opportunity window to borrow, but as a country, you have to discipline yourself and say, no, we are not borrowing for this particular period. For me, I must tell you, the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu government, I never expect them to actually even embark on borrowing, because according to them, they said by the time they remove fuel subsidy, there will be abundant money. Now it has been removed, and they have also confirmed that there is more money with federal government now. Why are we still going cap in hand to borrow? It's very funny. You may say you are borrowing for capital projects. Yes. Why not maximize what you're actually doing? And I can tell you, it's federal government that is borrowing now. Most states are actually not borrowing. It's federal government that is borrowing. So we must watch it. If not, our revenue will not be able to service the debt.
Now, you've quite rightly raised the concern that post-subsidy removal and the insinuation that there ought to be more funds in the coffers of the federal government, there's been a 24% year-on-year increase in debt servicing. You've talked about the prospects of being able to generate more in terms of IGR. But how do we end this vicious circle of debt servicing with over 85% of our revenue used to service debt?
It's just about fiscal discipline. if federal governments led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu can exercise fiscal discipline, I think we can actually come out of that. It's about fiscal discipline and have the decision that yes, according to federal government, this year alone, FRS has surpassed their targets of revenue. According to federal government, custom has actually surpassed their revenue. According to federal government, we have more money to share with the state. In fact, even the testimony is there because it is evidential when you will get to see the amount at which federal government and state government are actually sharing. So I think they need to make do with what they have, not until they must go back, go to get money. Most of us cry out then when you remove fuel subsidy and so float the naira. We said it's a potential danger because if you float the naira and remove fuel subsidy, floating of naira will erode the benefit of fuel subsidy, and that's what is happening now. Because if at all you give a state 500 million naira now, maybe every month, it does not reflect like the then 200 million naira. So it's better you give people 200 million with value compared to giving them 500 million that does not have value. That's the problem. That's the quagmire. That's the challenge we are in now. Until we go back and see it, and you will agree with me that forex is our major problem. Though there have been a lot of effort, but the effort is not yielding good result. Until we have our forex, to our benefit, maybe we can come down to like 700. That's when we can say, okay, our money will make much more meaning.
When you say forex, are you talking about the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar?
Correct. What I am first saying is that the exchange rate naira to dollar, because now the exchange rate is about 1,500, even though it's stable. It's not about the stability. It must also come down to where we can actually take advantage of it. That's the problem. Even if you look at our GDP, why are we number 4? We're supposed to be number 1 unequivocally. It has to be clear. But because the deflator, once they are rating your GDP, they'll come with deflator and deflate according to the level of your currency, which is forex, foreign exchange value. And that's what takes us to that number 4. So we must be conscious about it. Though government is trying to build the reserve more, we are trying to increase diaspora remittance, but we must do internally what we're supposed to do to make sure that we control this at all effort, because the supply side is the problem. We must also work on the supply side because the demand for dollar is just everywhere. And even if you look at federal government, when they declare money for the footballer, this president did not declare it in naira. He also declared it in dollar. These are the things. I don't know, maybe does not want people to know that it amounts about 150 million. But they say $1,000.
He said a naira equivalent of $100,000 would be given. Would you prefer?
Why not saying each player will go with 150 million naira? Why is it mentioning naira dollar equivalent? Why the mention of dollar itself? That's the optics. So you must also work on that. Why not say each player is going home with 150 million naira? But you're saying $1,000 naira equivalent. Why mentioning the dollar itself? So that's what we must.
How do we tackle this over dependency on the exchange rates? How do we give true value to the naira? Because I've heard policies like the naira for crude deal will strengthen the naira. We need to focus on manufacturing more. But how can the government be seen actively giving strength to the naira?
In fact, most of us, when Dangote was there, we are saying, oh, with Dangote now, with balance of trade and balance of payment, we could have more dollar available. But it's as if it's a fallen hope because we are not seeing it working. So until government is ready and making sure that, like this transition president made, we don't have such thing. We must make sure that everything comes in naira time and no contract. I saw that there's a circular that nobody should actually issue contract out in dollar. We must look at those things because we call that president, the CBN governor has tried a lot of things that he said maybe perhaps will be causing the dollar naira challenge, because he said, according to him, he said it is the breed they change, they reduce them to barest minimum level. At the point they said it's cryptocurrency problem, they remove that. Point they said is because there is a waiver for some importation, they remove it. So it's a serious thing that we must look at. And the first thing that we must do is that we must enhance our production. And now that the exports by the policy direction of government, export is becoming more profitable. But the question is that what are we producing? So we must come back and make sure that we have what we call import substitution. most things that we are importing, let us be producing it and let's be exporting. Maybe that will also help to reduce the over dependence on dollar.
Oh, very well said. Then let's leave the economic aspect of our discussions this morning and come to more political stories. One of the big questions making the rounds lately is the question of if a 4-year single term tenure can fix Nigeria. It's off the back of a vow made by Labour Party's 2023 presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, who says if elected, he would only serve a single term of 4 years. Doctor, many look at Nigeria as having a multifaceted problem that 48 months might not necessarily solve. Do you think it is evident that such a period might set us on a course for an economic rebuild and a revival of our dear nation, Nigeria?
Well, leadership as it were can solve a lot of problems, and direction of leader may also help. Let me give you a quick one. When President Muhammadu Buhari came to power, you will agree with me that some people actually traveled out of Nigeria. Some people went and keep their money in the septic tank. Some people are only extra scatter because of his body language. But after 6 months, we actually lost it out. And he came out and said he was thinking it is military era, that this time around it's pretty difficult. Now, for Obi to come out to say yes, he's going to spend 4 year, one single tenure. I think it's political, which is a win for him if he went through it. But to fix Nigeria in 1 year, in 4 years, I think the answer is no. But you can give Nigeria a direction, and that direction could actually help. And how do I mean? We've seen some top leader, even in Africa, is it Nelson Mandela and some of them like that, came and said they will use 1 year. You're also seeing it in America. Is it with
Mr.
churches
Peter
or one of them actually?
He put out that tweet naming the likes of John F. Kennedy, the likes of Nelson Mandela, all
Right.
of whom served a
Right.
shorter term as compared to other leaders. And he said the propensity for African leaders to spend more than a year in office would only allow for corruption to get the better of their intended purpose. But it's on the constitutional provisions. Constitutionally, the Constitution says...
It's 4 years.
Yes, please.
Constitution is 4 years. So for me, I agree with him that it is possible he comes and uses 4 years. But the problem I have is that if he's coming, let's talk politically now. If he's coming from ADC or he's coming from Labour Party, what about the National Assembly? Are they going to be from his party also? Because that's where the problem is. Because he will propose a lot of law, a lot of reform, a lot of policy. It will be difficult for you to actually implement. You could see that because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have majority in the House, most bills, go and check, most bills that have actually changed policy or changed our way of doing things is executive bill. It actually came from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the tax reform. You agree with me? Is executive bill. So what I'm now saying is that will he be able to bring his executive bill to National Assembly, and this National Assembly will now come to actually agree with it? That's the problem. So for me, politically, he can do it, but policy-wise, I doubt if he can actually achieve it.
Now, some other persons have been very critical of his ambition. Even his state governor, the governor of Anambra, Chukwuma Soludo, mocked him in a rally, saying that he might need psychiatric evaluation. What do you make of Governor Chukwuma Soludo's comments?
You know, before now, we know Governor Soludo as a professional person. But you know, once you wear the toga of politics, you become something else. For me, it's uncalled for what he's saying. Somebody is saying that he can use 4 years to actually, you know, bring fortune to Nigeria. Why not face your campaign and tell an Nigerians what you have actually done for them, in the place of you coming to say, you know, talking about somebody who's campaigning for presidency. You know, from look of things, Soludo is now an appendage of APC. That's actually singing the song of APC. For me, it's unnecessary. He should face his business and allow Peter Obi to campaign with his people. You know, it's a two different thing. It's not even in ABGA, you know, and it's not in APC. So you should allow him to say whatever he wants to say. It is left to we Nigerians to decide if what he's saying resonated with us. I can tell you what he's saying is also political to the North, because the North want to have their own time, eighth time after eighth time to the South. So So it's also speaking to the people's intuition. Obi is speaking to the people's intuition. So for you to say it is not correct, please allow him. If he has his way in Nigeria, that means Nigeria truly wants him.
Now, I'm talking about the permutations between the North and South in a gentlemanly agreement of power rotation. Many have questioned, should it be power rotation or should it be leadership based on competence?
Well, at the risk of in Labour. The fact remains that for me, let me use my state as an example because we have to look at it from that microcosm before you can look at it at a bigger level. I think as in Nigeria it is now, we have competent talent everywhere. So you cannot say a region cannot bring a competent person. So also even in some states, you cannot say one constituency does not have a competent person, and it's political. So when it's political, that simply means once it's our turn, we also have the advantage. So for me, I believe we should be rotating it, but while we rotate it, we should bring the best hand from a particular region.
Now, Adamu Waziri was quite very critical of his view of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's first 2 years in office. He said comparatively that this might be the worst 2 years as compared to the 8 years of the recently demised former President Muhammadu Buhari. What do you make of comments made by Adamu Waziri?
Well, economically speaking, Nigeria are now are worse off to an extent compared to when Buhari government was there, and the economic indicators are there to prove that yes, we weren't buy fuel at this level during President Muhammadu Buhari. We were not paying more transport as it is now. We were not buying food at high rates as it is now. We are not paying more school fees as it is now. We can keep mentioning those things. So if it's at that yardstick, yes, we can say that 2 years of this administration have actually retrogressed Nigeria, purchasing power, as it were. It may be for the good of the economy in the long run, but what will happen in that long run? Are we going to actually see that long run? Are you thinking it will not be eroded?
Now, overarchingly, these views and comments.
So for me, I think everybody have their opinion as well.
Now, overarchingly, right, this diversity in views and comments all geared towards 2027. I was looking at one of the statements issued by the Chief Permanent Secretary, Press Secretary rather, to the INEC Chairman, Mr. Rotimi, who was talking about premature elections. It's just about 2 years into a 4-year term, and we're seeing endorsements for the president's re-election, whilst we're looking at the coalitions looking to put their house in order. I know as provided by the Electoral Act, there is a guideline on the commencement of campaign. But do you see INEC as being stringent enough to penalize premature elections beyond those publications greeting the front pages of newspapers?
Well, for me, I think, I don't know how to put it, but I think INEC is not doing what they're supposed to do. And it's because most of these things are actually caused by the ruling party, and I think it's very difficult to actually challenge the ruling party. If you go from city gates to the airport, you will see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu campaign. Will I call it campaign? Yes, it's a campaign material everywhere. If you go to Lagos, the same thing. If you go everywhere, you see the same. So I think they're supposed to start questioning APC first before thinking about ADC or other political. We have seen a lot of people that campaigned for Tinubu earlier, before he emerged president. They have started the route again. So I think INEC is not biting as expected.
Well, and lastly, before we move past this question of can a single 4-year term fix Nigeria, it's also of the opinion that many are looking at it from the angle of desperation. People are saying that he's just so eager to become president of Nigeria. How do you judge a man's intention by such a promise of serving one term as against the ambition of ruling a country with so much of inherited problems like every successive administration tells Nigerians that they inherited?
Well, for me, I think Nigerian law provides for 4 years. So, and you have to go to the poll for you to contest again. So for me, and there is no any constitution that says you must do 2 term or it is guaranteed for you. So on the back of that, I think 4 years is not too much for him to say. So let him say whatever he wants to say, and let the Nigerians decide if they actually trust him to vote for him and believe him, if that's what he will actually do. Remember, even President Goodluck Jonathan then proposed 6 years term for president. I think so. And I'm foreseeing President Bola Tinubu also, when he's going, maybe after second term, he may also want to go to that route to propose a 6 years to propose a 6 year single tenure for our presidency. I'm looking at that honestly. So it's not bad for Obi to actually said he want to go for 6 year term. I mean single term of 4 years.
Now, away from this story, let's talk about one that affects majority of Nigerians, not minding which political party you're in. It seems as though the territorial rainfall experience in 2025 is a double maxima. A new warning predicting 5 days of flooding in 19 states has greeting one of the newspapers this morning as the lead story. It's also been evidently seen in Lagos, where several states were flooded, particularly in the Ikorodu area. Beyond this relocation notice, how do you see Nigerians dealing with the flood this year?
Right. It appears we are not ready and we are not learning our lessons.
Why so?
And from all other things that have been happening, even the Mokwa flood, I am thinking that ordinarily I expect Nigeria to build more dams. Because by building more dams, that means you have a place that all this water can be absorbed into. Right. And in terms of our urban and regional planner too, I think they have to go back again and look at it because it depends on where you are, the low level and what have you that you experience such thing. And it becomes every year reoccurring. So even limits as well, honestly, they are doing well at this point in time. They should also go beyond declaration of this. They should also bring recommendation that in terms of building a dam, because if you have more dam, most states will not suffer those things because those dams will be absorbing those water. So I will advise that we have to do more. Then for our dwellers, it's pretty difficult for Nigerians when you say they should leave their home, they should relocate to somewhere else and what have you. So I think that's our problem too. Government will also bring a kind of encouragement, especially for like a place like Lagos that is being. It's like every year occurrence for Lagos that they will have experienced much more flood. So area like that Ikorodu axis, we could also have a dam that will absorb those water and later channel it to the ocean itself.
Now, still talking Lagos as a case study, the Lagos state government began a clampdown in estates across Ibejuleki, Ekpe, Aja, over 176 estates that have now been declared illegal for lacking approvals in terms of town planning. What does this portend? 176 estates, not 117 houses. How do these persons who are residents in these estates begin to prepare, or what can they do in line with this lack of approval in terms of planning?
So sometimes it becomes so very, very laughable when you listen to some government officials are coming out to say this. Let's look at federal capital as for instance. Once you start clearing land, they will know that you are clearing the land. So what are state governments, Lagos state government be looking at before those people start clearing the land? Before they must have processed through government to an extent and started erecting a structure until they complete the structure and they are staying in that structure. You are not declaring it illegal at this point in time. What have you been looking at? Why not pay it as a debt? So I think they should also be eager to pay compensation for people if you want them to bring their house down. For me, you have been looking at them erecting such structures that cost them a lot, and I think it didn't perfect the paper. So where were you? Are you in Abuja when they are building in Lagos?
Well, overarchingly, we're also seeing some magnanimity on the part of Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu. So far, so good. There's been an editorial on how she has donated over 4.1 billion naira in the last 7 months The most recent being a 1 billion naira given to victims of the Mokwa flood in Niger State. A lot of people have asked from one angle the legality of the office of the First Lady constitutionally. Does she have funding to do that? Where's the money coming from? It's more so on ways we can help with those dealing with this flood situation. What do you make of the First Lady's magnanimity and the eyebrows raised in that regard?
Right. I think in her own rights, she has the rights to actually support people. And being a senator, not even one-time senator, being wife of former governor, we don't have to question her doing such thing. But the question I want to ask resonate with what people have asked. Does that office have its budget? Because to have expended 4.7 trillion, a billion 4.7 billion, I beg your pardon. I think it's called for questions, and that's why the Nigerians are asked, where is this money coming from? Is it from our private pockets or from our office? Because the office is not recognized by the constitution. Perhaps maybe some people are supporting and that we don't know. So I don't know if she can also do us the favor of telling Nigerians how she actually sourced the fund. Is it donor to her and donation to her, and she's also donating it? Or how is it coming?
Well, we'll continue to look out for more developments as it concerns the national alert on flooding in 19 states. But there's also a call on our viewers to do the best you can in ways to mitigate the floods. Don't dump refuse into drains, and ensure to monitor flood levels. Once it gets into an alarming rate, you might decide to begin to relocate your valuables not to be trapped in flood waters. Now, before I let you go, Doctor, we'll talk on another aspect of this conversation, and it's on crackdowns on cybercrime. Particularly, there's been a notion over time that most of the internet fraud being perpetrated is perpetrated by young Nigerians. But a latest arrest with a conviction by the courts has indicted 21 foreigners who have been ordered to pay 21 million naira and are supposed to be deported from Nigeria. They include nationals from the likes of India and Brazil. What does this speak to the effectiveness of the Cybercrime Act and the proactiveness of anti-graft agencies?
I think I'd like to say kudos to the anti-graft agency to have gotten to this level. We have that negative attitude that once we see somebody whose color appear to be white and different from us, we think they are more holier than that. But it appears that they are even the one behind some of those criminal acts that is called cybercrime. I think it's a good one. I must continue to discourage such a bad attitude, and I think they should pay that money and deported as expected. Because if it's in Nigeria that was found wanting in their states, we will not even get to hear it. They will continue to take action. That will not even be to find and deport. Nigeria will be jailed. A lot of Nigeria are being rotten in different jail across the globe. But I think it's a good one. If we can, like I always said, that to catch these criminals, you must also be in the cloud watching them. So, but I think beyond the arrest, most of them are still succeeding in perpetrating. Is there a way we can actually stop those things from actually happening? Because those people they have defrauded, those who are in pain, some of them will not even be able to say it out. But it is serious. I think the anti-graft agency are doing well. We encourage them to do more.
Now, Doctor, we'll take a short break. We'll return to some more conversations this morning. Just stay with us. Hello, Doctor. Are you still with us?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Let's move on into another conversation this morning, and it's on the position of oil workers and particularly PENGASSAN when it comes to the sales of our national refineries. PENGASSAN in particular is advocating for the adoption of the NLNG model in the privatization of the Port Harcourt, Warri and Kaduna plants. What do you make of the situation of our refineries and the proposal to sell them off?
Well, it is sad that we are now coming back to sales of the refinery. You recall that our passenger government actually sold it, and Yaradua came to reverse it. And we have been saying that the best thing now is to sell those things. So now, selling it now, I think is a good one. But the thing is, if it will work like an LNG, that would be a good one for Nigerians. But I read in the paper today that they said they should fix it before they will sell it. And I don't know why will you fix what you want to sell. So when you fix it and you sell it, then what is the gain of the federal government? Anyway,
What's the
for me,
valuation of that? How do we value the market value for the refineries, which many people say have a lot of obsolete equipments in it?
That's obsolete is technical language. You see that a private person will come in and it will be functioning. So I can tell you that it's because of the nature of, maybe will I say, government, that most of them will, instead of them to manage things well, they will not manage it well. So for me, I think by the time a private person takes over, they are profit oriented and they will not joke with this. So adopting LNG style, I don't see.
Hello, Doc. Well, as though
Anything bad to say about it. So I
we did
think
lose
it's a
you
good
for
one.
a couple of seconds there. My question again
Right.
was on the earlier position of the GCEO of NNPCL, Engineer Bayo Julari, who had earlier said that far be from it for an option in terms of considering the sale of the refinery. He's been in the media lately following some controversies on his absence from duty. He resurfaced at a public function. What do you make of his position in regards to this calls for privatization of the nation's refineries?
Well, I remember the president and commander of Federal Republic of Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is the minister of
Petroleum.
petroleum. So when Ojulari is speaking, I want to think is speaking to the thinking of the president of the country. Right. So selling it, I remember Ojulari is coming from a private sector who understand how the numbers actually work in private sector compared to government. There is a lot of bureaucratic bottleneck, and that's why he's proposing the sales of it. For me, in as much as we believe that selling will make it to be functioning optimally, it's a good one. But if government does not have anything to actually control the markets, it becomes a problem too in the long run. So if sales will now bring balance that we're expecting, I think it's good. Let them move on and sell it. If that will give us, because the money we have expended on the even refurbishing, revitalizing with different semantic, it has gone beyond expectation. And if care is not taken, we'll continue to spend money.
Now, how do we get them functioning optimal? You talked about a reversal in the sales following the late President Warri Musa Yar'Adua's administration. It almost seems as though at this point, would there be a U-turn in a successive government comes and doesn't like the position of whatever decisions taken by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration?
I doubt that. Rather, the new government should come and build another refinery. Yes, because if it is being sold, I believe it will work optimally. And the new government that is coming must have seen the trajectory of the refinery, how it has got a lot of money, right from Jonathan to Buhari up to Tinubu era, and there is no result. And if you look at it cumulatively, it's over 20 years. Yeah, they have been trying to fix the refinery and it has not worked. And a private-owned refinery with a bigger capacity and modern technology has come to stay. And I also know that Abua is also coming on board too. So I think to sell it would solve a lot of problems.
So what now happens to the reported over $3 billion that has been spent in turnaround maintenance since 2021?
I think that's what we need to National Assembly to continue to probe, since they are the one doing the oversight function. So they should go ahead with that. That's their own business.
But the National Assembly also cried out to the media that initial summons has given to the NNPCL to appear to explain a certain $21 billion or naira rather in audit reports from the NNPCL accounts has not been regarded or even responded to.
Well, for me, I think you see it as a distraction and a waste of time. Because you do not see Mele Kyari, you do not see other people that are being at the helms of affairs to invite. You are inviting somebody who just resumed barely 6 months.
But some people argue that the documents and all the reports were handed over from Mele Kyari to Engineer Bayo Julari, and at some point, if he found discrepancies, he should have been the first to raise an alarm.
Well, for me, I think they should go after Mele Kyari, and Mele Kyari will now refer them to directors to actually work with him, not distracting Ojulari. The Ojulari comes there new and he has to start on a clean sheet.
Well, away from this, let's talk about the democratization process. We are just a few weeks to the commencement of continuous voter registration, CVR, and many Nigerians are debating on if to get their permanent voters cards or not. But civil society organizations are canvassing for active participation of the electorates in the next election cycle. What's your opinion ahead of this calls for an active participation in the democratization process?
I think this actually came up on time, whereby people have to go ahead to register and to change their voters card location and a lot of that. I think it's a good one that we're having it coming up on time. So what we only need to do is that we need more polling units, more accessible, more technology that makes it much more easier for people to register their new for their voters card newly, and those that have little challenges to have an adjustment and put it into proper perspective, preparing them for another election. But the thing is that are Nigerians ready to vote? That's the question now.
In your opinion, are Nigerians ready to vote?
Right. So when you say Nigeria ready to vote, we all want to see dividend of democracy. So have we seen the dividends? Do we have the confidence that our vote is actually is being counted? These are the things that are on the mind of Nigeria. So INEC must come clean, and provide an enabler that will make Nigerians to want to go ahead to vote.
All right, Doctor, we appreciate you for taking our time to have these conversations with us this morning. We're wishing you the best of the rest of your day. Have a nice day.
Thank you for having me. Have a nice day.